Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, guess what? There is another peace plan on the table for Ukraine. Well, do you know who came with that peace plan? It's Great Britain and the baboons. And these guys gave that peace plan proposal to the Americans. And I have details about the peace plan. So remember, Donald Trump, the United States of America, came with a peace plan. The Russians have their own peace plan. And then now the semi-conscious Europeans are coming with their peace plan. And I'm going to read the details for you. I have 5 articles here. I'm going to go chronologically to see how these guys are hiding who's who, what is what. But I have the details and we're going to discuss them. So this is the article that brought this new peace plan to my attention, right here. This is from Ukrainska Pravda, Friday, the 25th of April, 2025. The Telegraph reveals new draft document on peace talks with Russia. Draft document. That is like, all right, we're going to talk about it, but mainly this is what it is. So I looked down and I was trying to find out who issued this. It was not clear for me. Maybe because I'm a baboon, but let's read. Maybe you figured it out. Ukraine, as part of peace negotiations involving the United States, hopes to prevent Russia from gaining formal international recognition of its sovereignty over Crimea and other occupied territories. Good. Source, the Telegraph. Okay, I said so. The Telegraph might have, but in this article, there's no mention on who the hell had this draft. Details. The Telegraph says the draft document consists of 5 key points. So I didn't know who issued this draft, right? Who issued? So I said, okay, let's go to the Telegraph. And the Telegraph, Starmer challenges Trump peace plan for Ukraine. I said, okay, let's go. Let's read it. They want money. I don't like that. So, and I said, let's read the first one, because why? I found it differently. I found it right here by the report. All right, so Starmer challenges Trump's peace plan for Ukraine. But let's go back to this one. So I can continue reading this. So I'm going to go back to this wise. The first ones. The first and second points stress that any peace agreement must be based on international law, not capitulation, with a specific warning related to a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan. I'm like, what? Okay. These points also underline the importance of firm security guarantees as a condition for any future agreement in which Ukraine would concede territory to Russia, even temporarily. That's exactly what I said. We're going to get at it later after we recuperate and other people come into power. The third point is described as an attempt to shift control over the negotiations away for Donald Trump and piece Ukraine back at the center of the peace process. So with this sentence here, I said, okay, so it's not the Americans, must be some baboons, right? I mean, push this guy away and push Ukraine back. Well, why would you put Ukraine back when Ukraine actually was your bitch? Who's in control? When you go to a store and you have a problem, you return an item and you encounter someone over there. You don't go to someone who can't solve your issue. Personally, that's what I do. I say, okay, hello, how are you? I have a problem. I explain the problem in very short terms. And then I ask, can you solve the problem? And if the person says, no, but I can, okay, give me the person that can solve the problem. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time in discussing this. Give me the person. I want to make my case here, and the person will decide yes or no. And then I go to the next one, and next one, and next one, until I get the boop, 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 and say, okay, fuck it, that's it. Nice try, Emil. So what's going on here? So Trump must go. So must be a European garbage. Let me read further. The fourth point warns both the US and NATO that allowing Russia to retain control of Crimea would enable it to threaten not only Ukraine but also Black Sea allies as Turkey, Romania and Bulgaria. Why are these countries? Let Turkey away, because it was in NATO since the conception also. Romania and Bulgaria, why are they allies now? The fifth and final point clearly states that Russia must not be allowed to use any agreement to restrict the size of Ukraine's armed forces or its defense industry. Okay, what is this? What is that? I'm going to read you the first one. The first and second points stress that any peace agreement must be based on international law, not capitulation. Well, all this is Russia's capitulation. That is, you know the main causes, the root causes of this conflict. That is NATO. NATO. And then from there you go, NATO expansion, the West lying to the Russians in 1991 with no expansion whatsoever, and then enlargement, and then getting to Ukraine, and then the coup d'etat in 2014, supported then by you know who, and then the overthrow of a legitimate government. That's the root cause, NATO. And then you go to who's in charge of NATO. There's not Germany, there's not France, there's not Great Britain. It's the United States of America. That's the Washington Treaty. United States of America is the one in charge. So you talk to the boss. You don't talk to the guy who cannot solve your problem. So why would you give to Ukraine? So you can be behind the scenes, like the Brits always like, be behind the scenes and use everybody else. And then when you're about to smack them, you smack the pole. Remember that, how do you call it? Example I give you with a circus. You have the lions and you got the circus guy with a long whip and a long pole. And the lion jumps on the pole or on the whip. And actually the Great Britain is right here. And sometimes the lion realizes that Ukrainians or the Georgians are not the ones. This guy is handling everything. And you fight and you destroy a pole. This guy gets another pole. Yes, I know, Romania or Poland or the Baltic states. That's the way. And sometimes the lion sees who the Great Britain is behind all this and jumps on the tamer, trainer, how do you want to call it. So that's how these guys want to operate, from behind the scenes. The Russians already know the gig is out. All right, now what's going on here? Let's read further. So, as I said, I went to these guys and then I did in the search box the Starmer challenges Trump's peace plan for Ukraine, and everything that came was this. This was the new term. Keir Starmer contradicts Donald Trump over Ukraine's peace plan. Says, okay, the Prime Minister refuses to associate himself with the President's recent attacks on Kiev. All right, maybe it's not even related. This is that baboons, and I found the one that supposedly this article uses. But remember, these guys use Telegraph and they want money. I don't want to give you money. Move on. Starmer challenges Trump's peace plan for Ukraine. Here it is. Sir Keir Starmer has insisted that Ukraine must be allowed to decide the terms of any peace deal with Russia. Remember the tamer? That's what it is. In a challenge to proposals by Donald Trump. Okay, this guy. Just a baboon. The Prime Minister contradicted Trump by saying that the courageous Zelensky, now he's the hero that our children will have to learn about, like October 7th, is the fantastic, oh my God, Napoleon was fixed pigs compared with Volodymyr Zelensky. The Ukrainian president, he's not Ukrainian, what I don't want, he's an alien, was not to blame for the failure to strike an agreement ending the war. So, who's Mr. Starmer? A badge. Sir Keir, also refused to back U.S. plans to formally recognize Crimea as Russian in any negotiated settlement with Vladimir Putin and demanded that Moscow agree to an unconditional ceasefire. Why don't you declare war to Russia, Keir? Just do it straight, man. I mean, intervene like you did against Germany in the Second World War. Why not? Defend the innocent Poles, okay? Who you told not to negotiate in good faith. Remember that one? And you said, if these guys are going to invade, we get the Germans, we're going to destroy them. And you used your generation then to attack the Germans. But when the Soviets did the same thing to Poland, you did not do anything. You did not declare war on Soviets. No, why? Because the Zelensky-Steins were riding high in Russia, Soviet Union at that time, still. So, please, spare me the outrage. Go and fight, man. I mean, you see a rape in progress, what do? You say, hey, no, you go and talk to, excuse me, but scratch him. No, poke him in the eye, grab him by the balls. Why don't you go there, homie, and grab the guy and punch him in the face and knock the fuck out of him? Because you're weak and you're a fucking weasel and you're an opossum, as I said. You are all aggressive, but actually you're harmless. Why? You're a coward. You're a coward, but at least you know your potential. I can't fight the Russians, but I'm going to use everybody else's parents, brothers, sisters to fight for my interest. All right, let's move on. In an interview with the Telegraph, this guy said, oh my God, in a Royal Navy flagship aircraft carrier, power, strength. He said, we are at an intense stage in our negotiations. In the end, You're not in negotiations. Nobody wants you but the Ukrainian Zelensky. In the end, I'm always mindful of the fact that it is Ukraine that must decide of those issues. It's not for other people to decide on behalf of Ukraine. It is for Ukraine to decide, and Russia must come to the table for an unconditional ceasefire. Hey, what was over there, the first one right here? Where is that at? Not capitulation, you said? What do we have here? Unconditional ceasefire? Okay. All right. He continued, right, that to push for U.S. security guarantees for his condition of the coalition of the willing, which is 3 countries. No, it's 6 countries supposedly. It's 5 plus 1. The one we're not allowed to know the name. Seriously, we're not allowed yet. The 5 are Great Britain, France, the Baltic states, total population 6.1 million people, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And then the other one, the 6th one, we are not allowed to know it yet. Who could that be? Poland? Czech Republic? Germany? That's it. That's it. So again, coalition of the willing. Russia is going to smack coalition of the willing like it's nothing. So, and he says, details of a point, right there, details of a 5-point set of demands from Kiev have been shared via Telegraph, revealing major differences still remain with America's 7-point plan, which emerged this week. At the center of demands is an insistence that Crimea, Ukrainian land. Why is it Ukrainian? Annexed by Putin's forces in 2014, is not formally recognized as Russian. Why is it Ukrainian land? Is it because in 1954, the then Soviet dictator Nikita Khrushchev just decided he's going to take it from the Russian, how do you call it, Socialist Soviet Republic of Russia, whatever it was called then, given to the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist, just like this, pak. Who's that guy? Khrushchev. Is Khrushchev a good guy now or is the bad guy now? Make up your mind. And if you say he's a good guy, then that means the other guy, Stalin, the Georgian Stalin, the man of steel, Mr. Djugashvili, is also a good guy. Why? He gave you, Ukraine, parts of Bessarabia from Romania. So he gave you that. Another dictator. So your country, oh, by the way, after the Second World War, who received what? From the Poles. That country, you can track it back, its origin, and the countries that were taken territories and given to you. So what I know about Ukrainian land? Where is Ukrainian land? Since when? Since when is Ukrainian land? 1954? Because the dictator gave it to you he woke up with a hard on and said, I'm going to give it to them. If it works like that, then shut the hell up when Putin does the same thing. And by the way, Putin forces annexed Crimea to referenda, 2 of them. One to get away from you, secession, and the other one to join Russia. Better than Kosovo, I would say. Hey, Great Britain, do you recognize Kosovo? Yes, you do. Then, shh. All right. And that gets me to these guys here from Sputnik, who tells us the whole story. Details of U.S. peace plan proposal and Ukraine conflict unveiled. Now, this is it. They say these are the Americans' proposals, and then we're going to have the other ones right here. Here is what includes. This is the EU and Ukraine have presented their version of a peace deal, outlining key provisions aimed at resolving the conflict with Russia. So it was the European Union and Ukraine who gave the initial right here. The Russians told us from Sputnik. The other ones are just fucking around. Even though the Ukrainians here mentioned the Telegraph article that I already opened right here, which I found it right here, actually. And the Russians tell us that whatever happens. So let's see what the American plan is. A permanent ceasefire and the initiation of immediate negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine must give up all NATO aspirations. Vitkov proposals advocate for de jure recognition by the US of Russia's control over Crimea, plus de facto recognitions of the new Russian territories of DPR, LPR. Why de facto? They try to come back and fight another war later, as well as the Zaporozhye and Kherson regions, Russia-US cooperation in energy and industry, the lifting of sanctions against Russia. So I would say here is about 98% Russia's victory. What will you do? They are over there on the territory. You are home smoking a cigar, drinking bourbon. Here is what includes the what. The EU and Ukraine have presented their version of a peace deal outlining key provisions aimed at resolving the conflict with Russia. The proposal emerged after talks between Ukrainian and European NATO officials in London. You know who those guys were? They were the Germans. When I say European Union, over there, EU or European NATO, it was the Germans, the French, the Brits, and that's it. So when they say the EU, the European, it's three countries. Three countries were in London talking about it. And because the Secretary of State Rubio did not show up and Vitkov went to see Putin, that's it. They were left over there like, what are we going to do now? Nothing. All right, here it is. London on April 23rd, I covered that. Here is what it includes. Ukraine is ready to start talks with Russia on the issue of territories with participation of the EU, US and Europe once a ceasefire is in place. So the ceasefire will not be in place, therefore they will not start talks. That's it. You got it? Europe, the entire Europe, including, Albania, part of Europe, isn't it? Proposes negotiating territorial issues in the Ukrainian context, starting from the contact line. Europe and Ukraine demand U.S. security guarantees. They demand. Who the fuck are you? Europe, the entire Europe. And you can demand U.S. security guarantees. So we want you to use your boys for our interest. Good job, Great Britain. In response to Washington's peace proposal, similar to NATO's Article 5, they want to go at war with the Russians. Clear? Clear. They offer gradual easing of sanctions imposed, or gradual, that means, I'm going to give it to you little by little and then we change our mind. Since 2014, after peace is achieved, but threaten to reinstate them. The peace deal is broken. Europe, again, when I hear this, whole Europe, wants the US to take the lead in monitoring observance of the ceasefire. It can't. The United States of America gave more money than everybody else to Ukraine. That means United States is not a mediator, is not neutral. The United States of America is part of the fighting group against Russia. It can't monitor. That means you let the fox in charge of the chicken coop. You can't do that. The fox wanted to get in. You got the dog, smack the fox, and then we say, okay, the fox now is going to be in charge of the chicken coop. Wasn't the dog smacking the fox in the first place? Why did the dog was released from the house to the fox? And now the fox wants to be in charge and he's going to monitor observance. Jesus Christ, these guys really think we're baboons. Ukraine should have no restrictions, zero. No restrictions on its armed forces and on deployment. That means they will have an army. They will start over. That's a regrouping of NATO to start a third world war, but a second Ukraine war against Russia. Arming and operations of foreign forces. See, Ukraine should have no restrictions on its armed forces and on deployment. Arming and operations of foreign forces, NATO, on the Ukrainian territory. You got that? It's unbelievable, man. Are these kids or something? Europe entire post-war recognition for Ukraine, including at the expense of Russian assets, reconstruction, that should remain frozen until Russia compensates damage to Ukraine. What is that again? Where is that? Not capitulation? What does that sound like? You're going to reconstruct this country with your resources seized, stolen, from something that, because we start something in 1991, which is the expansion of NATO. Sounds like fair, right? Now, I don't know, the Russians have a lot of self-restraint. A lot of it. I don't know when they're going to lose it. Well, I have a new video next after this, where Mr. Shoigu says, we're going to use nuclear weapons on the Western Europe. We're going to use them. Well, go and watch that video. It's going to be right after this one. So, my friends, this is the proposal. What is going on? I tell you what's going on. There are some interests that lost the political will of the Americans. And those interests now use the baboons in Europe. Is like Frankenstein. Made from a dead body, they add all kind of things together and he's alive. That's exactly what they try to do with Europe. But it's still a Frankenstein. It can't operate on its own. The interests try to revive a dead, rusty, old whore Europe. It's not going to work. If it's going to work, the Russians will screw them and the Americans will. The deal between the big dogs. Europe is not a big dog. They cannot let that go yet. They live in a delusion, in a simulation. Their life, their reality is a simulation. like you fly a plane in a simulation. If you crash it, you start over. Click, put 25 cents and start over the whole game. It's not like that life. It penalizes you. You go and fly, you crash, you dead. All right? You dead. Not you are. You dead. All right. Thank you very much for being with me again today. We have some criminals who really want to push for a world war with Russia. World war only in Europe. Not in the no. Just the Europeans must have it for the third time. Why? So some people can come back with their monies and profits to reconstruct Europe for all of us. And since we're gonna need some manpower, we're gonna import iron ore from Africa, for instance, and they will help us recreate the European nations. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.